Hey y'all, this is wind part 3 of a series that I'm doing in wind, and on this segment I want to show you guys how to write a dope card. I think you guys will find it interesting and helpful. So before we move on to part 4, I wanted to show you guys how to write a dope card and talk about wind columns a little bit, so that when we get to wind strategies regarding troop lines and near far targets, we kind of have a good, foundation of how to write a good dope card. So stay tuned. So I want to show you guys some materials that you'll need. I have these 3x5 index cards that I use for dope cards, and I prefer the big ones over these small ones. The reason why is because I could write more things on this, and it's a lot bigger, so I could see it a lot better. I like big fonts and big letters, and especially under time and stress, like you're able to see it like it's right in your face, instead of these like little small numbers that anyways. So 3x5 index cards, I like to color code mine, so I like to use either red or orange for my elevation. The black marker is to draw the lines and to write your target and distance, and then your blue pen, or you could use green if you want, for your wind. And we'll go over why I like to color code it in a few moments. So, Kotak dope card holder. Usually these small ones go on there, it just sticks on there, but since I like to use these big index cards, I just have this clip that I put on there, and then clip it right there. As you can see, it's right in my face with the big numbers. It's also flexible, so that if you accidentally hit it, or it doesn't break, so it's very flexible. The other system that I use is I have these wristband dope card holders that you put in your wrist. This one's from Kotak as well, but Wristband and other companies sells these. I think Sunrise Tactical is another company that sells these. So I like to put my dope card on here when it's a prone stage, or if it's a modified prone. If I'm shooting different positions and shooting through a barricade, then that's when I like to use these. And the reason why is if I'm shooting through portholes, like this will bend back, or if I'm shooting through if I'm moving a line and shooting in different barricades, like I think it's a lot easier for me to have this wristband over this one. But that doesn't mean that I don't shoot with this in barricades. There's been times where I've shot with it. Again, it's flexible, so you could get away with a lot with these as well. So how do I write my dope card? I like to use my black marker to write the lines, these lines over here, plus to also write the target name and also the distance. So that's what I use the black marker for. And so we're looking at the Texas Rimfire Punisher stage 4. It was 123 yards. The marker was a green plate and a 3-inch. So the target was a silhouette and a 3-inch circle. So I write that down: green plate and 3-inch circle, and then the target distance next to it. And then for my elevation, I like to write it in either orange or red in bold colors, and I'll tell you guys in a few moments later on why I like to color code it. And I mean, one of the main reasons is to distinguish between elevation and windage, and basically to foolproof it as much as I can, so that under the stress of time I know which one's elevation and wind, especially when we get to 5 target troop lines where you have to write a lot of information. So I'll show you guys what that will look like. The color coding especially helps during that time. So my elevation will be on the top right, and in this case is 2.8 for 123 yards. And then I'm gonna write my wind in blue. So you could write it either in blue or green. In this case I have blue. So I'm gonna write my wind in miles per hour, and I'm gonna keep it at positive 3 and positive 6 if I'm holding right. So this is 3 miles per hour and 6 miles per hour. So for my 3 mile per hour wind, I'm holding 0.4, and for my 6 mile an hour, I'm holding a 0.7 column. So as you can see, sometimes the match director likes to play mind games. So position 1 is 2 shots big then small, position 2 is 1 shot big, position 3 is 2 shots small then big. So there's a lot of information, and if there's a lot of information, you have a lot of space to write down stuff over here. So in this example, I just ended up writing the information, especially if there's a lot of mind games in this stage. Like position 1 is going to be 2 shots big small, position 2 is 1 shot, which I put times 1 big, position 3 is 2 shots small then big, and so on until you get to the 8th position. So all of that is in my face whether it's in my wristband or on my dope card holder on my rifle. Like, I have it in my face so that I don't get lost and confused and try to recall to my mind what the course of fire says. Like, it's all in my face, and that's why I like to write using big index cards so that I could write that information if I need to, and you could write bigger numbers too and see easier. Or now, what if your wind is coming from the left? If that's the case, I like to write my wind in negative values. So if it's positive, I'm starting small to big, so 3 to 6. But if it's negative values, I'm gonna write it in big to small. And the reason I do that is because it's more intuitive for me personally. Like, negative numbers are always gonna start from the left and then work its way down until you get to 0, and then positive is gonna work for itself from small to big. So negative numbers is going to be all the way to the left is going to be your biggest negative number, and then smallest negative number to 0, and then when you get to your positive, it's going to be your small and then big. So that's the reason why I like to do that. And if the wind's coming from the left, then I'm going to put negative values. So in this case, my 6 mile an hour 9 o'clock wind, if it's coming from the left, is going to be 0.6, and then my low wind is going to be 0.2. Now let's take a look at a different stage where you have 2 targets. The distance is 246 and the next distance is 259. So engage the target from 6 different rocks, 2 shots per rock near to far each position. So how would I write that? In this case, instead of just putting 1 target at the top, I'm going to make another line and put the next target over here in the second line. So the first target is a square at 246. I write that in black. And then the next target is a jackrabbit at 259. And my elevation for my 246 target is 9.2. And then my elevation, which I write in orange or red, is for the jackrabbit is 9.9. If I'm gonna hold over, I put a parenthesis on the side. The parenthesis lets me know that I'm either holding over or holding under. If I'm holding under, then I'll put a negative value over here, but if I'm holding over, then I just leave it positive. And as you guys can see here, my wind is a negative value, so that means I'm holding left. So the wind is either going to be 3 miles an hour from the left or 6 miles an hour from the left. If it's a 3 mile an hour wind, then my hold for the wind is 0.9 for 246 and 0.9 for 259. Or if it's a 6 mile an hour wind, it's negative 1.5 or 1.5 left, and then the next one is going to be 1.6 left. I guess I'll show you guys what that could look like. So here's your 246 yard target, and then here's my picture of a jackrabbit. So here's a picture of my 246 yard target, and then the jackrabbit at 259. So since it's a negative value, then I'm going to hold left. So I'm going to bracket negative 0.9 left to 1.6, so I can fit all my wind calls on there since the target is big enough. And let's say an impact right there at 1.5. Then if you take a look at this wind column, my next wind should be 1.6, since I'm gonna be in this column, my 6 mile an hour column. Or if you impacted right here, then it's gonna be your 3 mile an hour column. That means your next wind call is gonna be the same, 0.9. But let's just pretend that I ended up impacting over here at 1.5 left, which is this wind. Then on the next target, I'm gonna hold 1.6, which is gonna be right there, 1.6 left, and I should impact somewhere in the middle, unless the wind drastically change. So I'm basically taking a look at my first impact to see which column I impacted, and then I stick with that column on the next target. So if it's 1.5 left, then my next wind should be 1.6. It's not that much of a difference because the yardage are within 15 yards of each other. Now, what if your wind was a switchy wind? Let's say I was coming from, it was a tailwind. I was coming from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and it's very switchy. So how would you write your dope card? So if we take a look at the same targets, the 246 square and the jackrabbit at 259, you can see I have all sorts of numbers. I have my high wind. If it's coming from the left, it's going to be -4, and my low left wind will be 2 miles an hour. So 4 miles an hour and 2 miles an hour, and then if it's coming from the right, it's going to be 2 miles an hour and 4 miles an hour. So if you take a look at the wind at 246 on this column, it's going to be you're holding 1.0 left, and then if you impact at 1.0, then your wind hold should be 1.1 left on the next one. And if it's coming from the right, let's say it's a low right wind at 2 miles an hour, then if you impact at 0.1 at 246, then your next wind call should be at 0.2. So how would I decide which column to use in this instance? In this range that we were shooting at, we had a wind flag, so you could tell which way the wind is coming from, or we also had a mirage. But let's say that you don't have a wind flag and you can see the mirage going left to right. That means you're gonna hold left because you're gonna have to shoot against the wind. So you're holding left. So my value will be, I'm gonna be using these negative values. So for my first target at 246, my wind call should be somewhere between 0.6 to 1.0, and I'm assuming that the mirage is remaining the same, or the wind flag is showing you that it's a left wind, then I'm gonna bracket 0.6 to 1.0 over here. And if I impact, let's say I impact right here at 0.6, then my next wind should be 0.7 on the jackrabbit. So I'm gonna put 0.7 in the middle, and I should impact in the middle of that jackrabbit. That's if your wind is going left to right. And it could switch on you. In that case, then you just switch to this column over here, which is going to be your right wind. Now, what if you have a 5-target troop line? In this example, the troop line is from 100 to 300 yards in 50-yard increments, circle at 100, square at 150, and so on. So there's a lot of information, and this is why I like to color code it, because if this is all black and I'm under time stress, like, it's gonna get confusing for me. But because I have it color coded, I know that orange or red is elevation and my wind is gonna be blue. It's easier for my eyes to see, and it's in big numbers versus this small little card. It's hard to fit everything in there, and that's why I like to use these index cards. So if your first target at 100 yards, you hit at 0.3, then you're gonna be in the second column for the next one, unless the wind changes, of course. But something that you could observe in these columns is it's going up by 0.1 if it's a 4-mile-an-hour wind from the right. Then you're just going up 0.1 every target. So 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you probably put 7 over here, but it's 0.6. And over here, you're barely getting any changes because it's a 2-mile-an-hour wind. So if you're holding 0.1 on this first target, then you should end up around 0.2, assuming that the wind is still the same. And that's why it's important for you to watch your impact on every target to try to see any wind changes that way. You know, we can get into more advanced stuff as far as like when reading the mirage, but maybe we could get to that in the future. But for now, you just want to look at where you impact or miss so that you could read wind that way. And this is something that you're never going to graduate from. Even you get to more advanced stuff, like you're always going to go back to your fundamentals, which is follow through. For me, follow through means after you pull the trigger, you're keeping your eyes on the scope so that you could see the target or your miss and your impact, and then adjust accordingly in the next target. That's what follow through for me is. Thank you guys for watching these videos. On the next one, we'll probably go into wind strategies with troop lines. I gave you guys a little bit of it today with the dope card, but we'll go into more details about troop lines or near to far targets or far to near. So stay tuned.